there, foodie friends, and welcome to Kitchen Chat. I'm your host, Margaret McSweeney, and I'm so glad you're joining us in the beautiful Viking and La Cornue Middleby residential showroom in the Merchandise Mart, and I am so excited about today. First of all, of course, Chef Jamie Larita, our co-host on this.
Yes, right here.
And special foodie friend, but y'all, it is
Biscuit Time!
Come on, Margaret, say it a little bit more. Come on, one more time.
Okay.
It's
Biscuit Time!
It never gets old.
It never gets old.
This is going to be so much fun, and you can find the recipe in Chef Carla Hall's new cookbook, Soul Food, and I am so excited. I'm embarrassed to admit something. This is kitchen confession time.
Okay.
No, nothing like that.
What is it?
She clutched her pearls.
Well, I grew up in the South, and I have never made biscuits.
I mean, wait.
Wait, say that one more time.
Okay.
What state? Where did you grow up?
Alabama. I know.
How is that possible?
Well, my dad would make them, but I never got in the kitchen and learned how to make them.
So you didn't watch your father do them, or a grandmother or an aunt or something in the kitchen?
Well, I watched my dad, but I never jumped in to actually make them. And I remember cornbread and the skillet too.
yes. Did you
Watching
make that?
I didn't.
Yeah.
I just was an observer. I know.
I am not shaming you. My face, I don't know why I look at you like that. I'm not shaming you. But
Here's what I suspect, Carla. That I think as we're cooking today, your memory of those times are going to come back.
Yes.
And you're going to remember the parts of biscuit making and the smells, everything. And you're going to be a biscuit maker here in short time.
Or I'm going to be a biscuit case as I cry with all these taste memories.
yes, and also I know how close you are to your dad, and if he was the one to make biscuits, and that's why Chadwick and I do this, because there's inherently this thing that comes out in people, whether they make biscuits or not. You either need to know how to make a good biscuit or recognize a good biscuit, and I feel that you are on the side of recognizing a good biscuit.
Yes.
Yeah.
And Margaret, who better to teach you how to make biscuits? I mean, look at you.
This is so
This is like going to be the ultimate biscuit recipe.
I mean,
Yes.
How about you?
I'm Italian, so my biscuits are different from your biscuits.
Oh, they
so is it
are.
a cookie?
Yeah, it's more of a scone, if you will.
Right, okay.
Yeah. But I love the addition to rosemary. That makes me feel like this could be possibly semi-Italian with the honey. But biscuits are something I don't make a lot of. So this is going to be
So
interesting
we're going to have
for me.
fun in the kitchen.
We are.
All
Yes.
right.
Yes.
So let's drop some biscuit knowledge.
Let's drop some
Let's do
biscuit
it.
knowledge. Okay. So simple ingredients. We have all-purpose flour, and I want to talk about the flour for a second. A lot of people think that, especially if you're outside the South, even if you're in the South, that you need to use white lily. And white lily is a softer wheat. And your regular all-purpose flour, we're using all-purpose unbleached. It's a heartier winter wheat, which I prefer. And the technique is in the lightness of the biscuit, but this flour will brown better, I think, and you get I think a sturdier biscuit. What's your thought about that?
Well, what I like about it is that we believe that anybody, no matter where you are in the country, can make a biscuit. And if you go to any grocery store, you're going to be able to get this flour. So the belief that you have to have one particular flour in a certain part of the country and that you're not going to be successful to make a biscuit, that's not true. So we're going to show everybody, you guys, how to use just a regular flour, all-purpose flour off of the shelf and turn it into a beautiful biscuit.
So I also want to say that when you are measuring your flour, a lot of times people will go right into the bag and measure, and sometimes they'll take the measuring cup and tap, 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 and it causes the flour to settle. And then in that case, instead of it being a cup, which the recipe may say, you now have a cup and a tablespoon. And so your ratios are off, and so your biscuits are bready, and so it's really in the measuring.
Now, what happened to sifting? I'm having a flashback
Okay.
with being in the kitchen and the sifter,
Yes.
happening. Do you still sift flour?
You still have to aerate it. So you
Okay.
need to aerate your flour because when in transport, it gets heavy and then water gets in there. Not water, but moisture. But back in the day, the flour wasn't pre-sifted. This flour is pre-sifted.
Oh, perfect.
Yeah, but you still need to aerate it.
Okay.
Good question, Margaret.
I know, but you
The
see,
memory just came back.
yes.
Thank you for this. This is great.
I am going to set all of these ingredients over to you. Here's the baking powder, if you can put that in there.
Wait, which one's the
This one.
baking? Okay.
All of them are
It's
going to
hard
go in there.
Tell them apart.
That's okay. Just grab a bowl with white
Okay.
stuff in it, okay?
This one?
Yep, that's salt.
Salt. And any kind of salt?
I use kosher salt, but you could also use an iodized salt, like a finer or a sea salt.
Okay.
So we basically put in there baking powder, baking soda, salt, and sugar.
Easy
okay.
ingredients.
Easy ingredients.
Yes.
And one of the things about sugar that people don't realize, it's not to sweeten. It actually is part of the chemical process to give the lift to a biscuit.
Kind of like you would use sugar with yeast. It feeds the yeast, and so with the baking soda. All right.
Carla, actually, why don't you, this is a really good technique. So what she's doing is taking her fingers and shaking it, replicating what a whisk does, which is a nice little thing that you can do at home for home cooks.
Fabulous.
Yep. So now we're going to take some Crisco. And I'm just going to say, for me, it is Crisco. It's not another brand. It's not an organic brand because it doesn't feel the same. What this is going to do is give you that crispy edge that I love. You know, it's crispy on the outside and very fluffy on the inside. This doesn't necessarily have to be cold. So I'm going to have you, Margaret. So with this one, you're going to just break it up in your hands. Get in there.
Like that?
I mean,
Put yourself into it, Margaret.
Get into it, Margaret.
Get in there, girl.
Don't be scared. I mean, with confidence, yes.
Okay,
And so what we're
There we
doing is
go.
just mixing it into. So I'm basically taking my thumb and just rubbing it in the
Okay.
flour. So I pick up some flour and drop it.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And you want to make sure that this is all mixed into the flour.
Okay. Yeah, I feel the little
You feel it
Crisco.
right. So if you fill any pieces, that means you have more work to do.
Okay.
Okay, right? All right.
Fun.
So yeah, just get back in the bowl.
Oh, okay. I have a biscuit
This
glove.
is a family thing to
Family
Yes,
style,
yes.
yes.
All right.
Margaret.
Thank you.
She's gonna get back in there though.
Okay, good.
Oh, okay.
do. She's not done yet.
All right, fine.
I feel like I'm being chalked for gymnastics.
All right, so the next tip that I have is to take really cold butter.
Okay.
And I roll the butter stick in the flour because our hands are warm and I don't want the butter to melt.
Yes.
And so, Margaret, you're going to do the honors of grating the butter.
I call this stop, drop, and roll.
Stop, drop, and
Drop,
roll. It sounds
roll.
like an emergency.
Before you
This
So-
might be.
So,
You can
okay.
just grate up the large pieces.
Like
I mean,
this.
yeah, this
Okay.
large, right?
Oh, okay.
And so the reason I'm doing this, especially for people who haven't made biscuits before, this makes these
Yes.
little shards of butter equal size, rather than, because what your dad probably did was pinch the butter.
Yes.
Right, and so, but he had been making them
Yes.
so much that he understood what size they needed to be, and that's how I made my biscuits for a long time. So now you can see here,
Oh,
you
it's
see the butter,
beautiful.
and then what we're gonna do is toss these shards in the flour so they separate. And we're gonna make sure we get it off of here, and then I'll let you finish the butter. And then let me do this. Okay.
Okay.
So Carla, let's talk about heat with our fingers too
Yes.
while she's doing that. So this butter is frozen, right? It was in the freezer, so it's frozen, which is great because it immediately, when you are grating it, is going to keep that coldness that you want. But sometimes people are like, my butter is melting with the heat of my fingers.
Yes.
Drop it back
So
into
yes,
the
so here,
flour.
drop this back.
Yes, so
You see,
drop.
yes, drop this back because your hands are starting to heat the butter up.
And what the flour does, it wicks it back up.
Wow. Oh.
And look at that.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then you can grate again.
Oh,
Yeah.
so that's the drop, stop, or stop,
Stop, drop, and roll, baby.
roll.
Yes,
and,
yes.
and a little rock and roll too,
There you
right,
go.
A little
Jamie?
rock and roll.
Another trick too is if your kitchen is really hot and your butter is way too soft, just pop everything back into the refrigerator for about 20 minutes and then
Yeah.
you can go again. Your refrigerator is your friend.
And we have all those shards here, and then we're just going to get that off. We're going to toss. Get in there, Jamie. So what you're doing is, as you're tossing, you're not pressing. Were you pressing?
No, I was pressing. I was pressing.
Don't press.
No pressing.
Okay, and then that's all. That's it.
That's it.
Yeah,
My job is done?
your job is done until I
Good
get
enough.
until I come back to you. with
Okay,
something
fine.
else.
Backing
right.
off.
So then Clinton. Hi, Clinton Kelly. I was thinking about you. All right, Chadwick. I'm gonna have you mix the sour cream and the low-fat buttermilk. And so this is one of my tricks that a lot of times when you buy buttermilk in the grocery store, it'll say low-fat buttermilk, which is kind of an oxymoron because is it low-fat or is it butter, right?
Right.
You know what I mean? Is it margarine milk? What is it? So what I do, because also, for two reasons, I usually take sour cream or yogurt and whole milk, or you can take that low-fat buttermilk, but I generally take two ingredients that I always have. I always have milk in my fridge, and I generally always have sour cream. So I don't have to go out and get an additional ingredient when I want to make biscuits one day. So, and this is also a way to tell people how to put the fat in. It is not an acceptable substitute to do milk with vinegar or lemon juice to make your own buttermilk, because you're still not going to get the fat.
Right.
So now what we're going to do is measure 1.5 cups.
Try a little more.
Yeah, a little more milk. Yeah.
To 1.5.
1.5.
Yeah.
Yep. And it's not always 1.5, but that is the mark that I use. But if I'm making biscuits in the summertime and my flour has absorbed moisture, I may not need as much liquid. So I'd never pour all of this in because I can't take it out. Now, if it does get really wet, what I generally have on hand would be self-rising flour. It's like I'm going to take it all, and then I do this hash motion because I don't want to smear the butter.
This is another thing. So people ask us about what tools do you use to make biscuits. So a heavy rubber spatula that can really get in there and dig and bring the dough up from the bottom.
Yes.
As you add the buttermilk or the thinned out sour cream, helps you in getting the dough to the consistency that's perfect for baking.
So I want you to see this mixture here. It is rather soft. And I'm
get back in
going to the bottom. So it's rather soft, right? You can touch it. See how soft it is.
Oh,
Reminds me of ricotta cheese.
Oh.
Right, and so the other thing too that you can start to see is that the flour, you can see where the buttermilk or the sour creams come together and the little pockets of butter. And that's what's all going to happen or make the chemical reaction happen when it puts in the oven. All of that stuff is going to come together and go like that and puff up.
Okay, I'm going to move those.
So there's a real science and an art.
Yes, and the
biscuit
reason
making.
that you want cold butter is because there's water in butter. And so, like Chadwick says, when it goes into the oven, that water creates steam, and that's what gives you the lift. Next trick, we're going to take some butter here on the cutting board, whatever surface. It could be on the marble here, it could be on the cutting board. So Chadwick is going to put down this. You could use spray oil or butter or whatever. And this is going to be the area in which we work. And the reason that we're putting the butter down is because we're going to put flour on top of that, and our flour is going to stay in place. And would you like to do that?
To put the flour?
Just sprinkle flour here
Okay.
with your hands.
It's so buttery, it's like okay, I'm sorry.
This is what I'm talking about, guys. This is what I was talking about.
This is why we're getting you involved.
This is why I was talking.
You know, you chat and we're cooking. Now you're cooking and chatting.
Exactly.
All right, so now what I want you to do is take that flour, and you'll see if you need more.
Okay.
Actually, I'm going to give you some more.
Okay.
And then just smear it. Yeah. And so now what you will see, you're going to have this beautiful, almost like a velvet place of where everywhere the butter is, that's where the flour is going to stay. So you see that?
Yes. It's
Now
flour painting.
It's flour painting. And the reason you're doing that is so that when I put down this wet dough, I don't want all that flour to jump onto my dough. So it keeps me from adding so much flour. So this is that. Now I'm going to add a little more flour because I'm going to go down with my dough. And I'm going to start to do some turns. And turns are what you usually make, thank you, Chadwick, in a laminated dough. So you know when you do puff pastry and you do these turns, I'm going to show you.
Okay.
Margaret, do you see how Carla is like doing this with a little bit of like reckless abandon? She's putting herself in it. You got to get in there.
Just got to get in there.
Don't be scared.
Don't be scared because
be
you're going to do
scared.
the next turn.
Oh my.
We're going to all do a turn. All right, so I pat down. I don't use a rolling pin. I just use my hands. put a little bit of flour, right? And I just bring that together, and I turn it. And it's okay if it's kind of shaggy because it'll come together. And I'm always going to turn into these open sides, okay? And it's not, it looks like I'm beating it up, but I'm not really. I'm still keeping it some height to it. I don't go too thin. So now what I want you to do is to do the turns. Get in there, Margaret. Get in there. Reckless abandonment. Okay, stop that. I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding.
Don't go crazy, Margaret.
You said reckless.
Don't
Now you're gonna
just
you're gonna
sweat
do a
nuts,
turn.
Okay,
guys.
I just,
Get into it.
Yeah, yes, that's it.
and then this one.
Yep.
Put your hip and
Yep.
your shoulder in it.
Come on, Margaret.
There
Oh.
you go.
Yeah, so now you're going to need some flour, just a little bit
Okay.
of flour.
Perfect.
And now you're going to turn it this way. Now you're going to start patting it down.
And did you see that just almost, I almost saw it go sponge up a little bit.
Yes.
It
Yeah.
did.
There's a spring to it.
Now
Yeah.
you want then that
Oh,
middle.
okay, really pat it, okay.
Okay. Jamie, you want to do one?
Sure.
Yes, and you'll have a great technique.
So basically, you want me to do this
Yeah.
and this,
Yeah.
and then turn it,
Yeah.
and then pat it down.
Yeah.
It's so like, I could feel that springy,
It's like a cloud, right?
really, really, really light. Beautiful.
Exactly right. And the thing is, you're not kneading. A lot of people think, oh, I need to knead it. Oh, please don't knead it. You need it, but you need to not knead it. Okay.
You need the biscuits.
Right. So now what I'm going to look for, I'm going to look for the pretty side. I'm going to turn this on. Let me make sure that I have. Actually, let me get rid of some of this.
Now that's a trick that you taught me, Carla, that I now do.
Yeah.
If you want to clean your surface after, just take the biscuit cutter and run it, and it brings everything up. Because if otherwise you put a sponge or a paper towel, it gets all gluey and gross. Yeah.
All right, so Chadwick, if you'll take some of that butter and rub on the sheet pan. I like butter on my pan. It makes the bottoms kind of a little bit crisp. You can use parchment paper, but you get a nice crispy bottom.
Which is part of the Crisco. That's
Yes.
what activates the Crisco.
So I'm going to go down, straight down, and then when I hit the cutting board, I'm going to turn just to release the biscuit. Now I'm going to turn it on the other side. So you see how this pinched edge is here? The reason that I turn it over is because if I leave it on the bottom, the weight of the biscuit will never allow that pinch to rise. You turn it over, it's going to give you like a 1/8, 1/16 of an inch, a little bit higher. And so that just goes on my, what is this?
A baking sheet?
Baking sheet.
It's called a half sheet pan. Carla.
What?
Okay, so see, and the reason I wanted the pretty side on the bottom is because you see how nice that is, and everybody's going to do one.
These
okay.
are beautiful.
All right.
get in there,
So
Jane.
get in here, into the flour and down.
Straight down.
Yes, yes. And this is when we chant, it's biscuit.
Biscuit time. It's biscuit time. It's biscuit time.
Keep going.
It's biscuit time. It's biscuit time. It's biscuit time. It's biscuit time.
Get in there, Margaret.
Oh, Margaret's twerking now.
Yes, she did.
In the flour.
It's biscuit time.
Oh, what
No,
did
no,
I
you're
do?
con- no,
Okay.
no, it's still biscuit.
It's biscuit time. It's biscuit time. It's biscuit time. It's
Oh, no.
biscuit time.
It's still biscuit time.
Okay.
So Margaret, into the flour first.
Okay.
So you're still here. Okay, that.
Okay.
And we're gonna have you do it
Got it.
again. Into the flour.
One more
first.
time.
It's biscuit time.
It's biscuit time. It's biscuit time. It's biscuit time.
It's biscuit time.
It's biscuit
Yes. And shake it out. Shake it out.
Whoa.
Turn it over. Turn it
Flip
over.
it. There you go.
Okay. Yay.
Look.
Okay.
That's Margaret's biscuit, y'all.
Boom.
Very
Margaret's
good.
biscuit. And so another little tip. There you go. Another little tip. So what I do, I go in here, and I bang it off to
Knock
get the. Thank you. I can't find my words today.
There's a rap song. You guys must be working on a rap. I know you, Carla.
We are working on a rap. I want to show you this. So at the end, now, I just want to know from you, I'm not going to let you touch this though, but what would your inclination be for this dough? I mean, like
Can you
what?
scoop it back together?
Yes, but
and
how would you do that?
recycle? Well, you would kind of just bring it together.
Exactly.
Yes, gathering.
That's a gathering.
Yes.
So what I'm going to do is
guess.
totally bring this. I'm bringing this together just like this. I'm going to make some flour on the heels of my hand. Bring it together, and you
then
don't
flip
want to, and flip it on its side. That's it. You don't want to do a lot to it because this biscuit has to be just as tender as that first biscuit.
God, these biscuits are going to be amazing.
All right, Chadwick, come on. It's biscuit time.
It's biscuit time. It's biscuit time. It's biscuit time.
It's biscuit time. It's biscuit time. It's biscuit time.
Flip it.
It's biscuit time.
Y'all join us.
Biscuit time. Back over. You saw the pinch edge. Pinch edge. Right. It's biscuit time.
It's biscuit time. It's biscuit time. It's biscuit time. It's biscuit time.
It's biscuit time. It's biscuit time. Yes. Okay.
Is that Margaret? Oh, that's
That's Margaret.
I thought that was Margaret. I was like, Margaret, wow, Margaret's really into this.
Actually, I would do it.
Actually, she really is.
I am.
Oh, shit. All right.
I'll
Okay.
get my lower back
All
into
right,
it now,
all right.
finally.
Okay, can you guys come every day?
Granny biscuit.
Granny biscuit.
Granny biscuit. Granny biscuit.
It's a
Granny
Oh, we
biscuit.
got this.
big granny biscuit. I'm gonna cut this one.
So the oven is at
Nothing's
425?
It's at 4.
50? What is it?
My Viking range is at not at 425. Now it is.
Okay.
So it's 450.
Okay, it was at 450?
Yeah.
That's great. Okay. Let's go in. And everybody knows their oven. You basically need a hot oven. If the biscuits have gotten warm, if you think the butter is too warm, pop them in the refrigerator and then bring them back
There we go.
out.
So, question. If you make this to this point, how long can you have them in your refrigerator before you bake them?
You can do, our recipes are very different. I know, Chadwick, you put yours in for long. You let yours rest
I
before
put the dough in the refrigerator for 20 minutes
Right.
before I cut them. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
So after I put the butter in, at that point, you can freeze it. You can put that into a Ziploc bag and put it in the freezer, and that's a great place to hold them. You can also freeze them at that point.
Oh, good.
Right.
I would not put those in the refrigerator overnight like that because they don't get activated and they turn gray and they don't get as much lift.
They're a little bit more gluey, a little
Yeah.
tough.
Okay. So on your recipe in that fabulous cookbook of yours, is it smart to do a double batch or do you?
Yes, you can. You
Okay.
can absolutely double this, no problem.
Okay.
Yep.
And for parties too, so you can make the biscuits, the individual ones, put them in the freezer the day before, and then get your oven good and hot. You can even put the baking sheet in there and then
Yes.
put the frozen biscuits on it because freezer gives more moisture. There's little pockets of moisture in it, which is gonna help with that lift, and they will rise up and get crispy and beautiful. Carla, what do you like to serve with your biscuits?
I love to serve, what do you mean, this honey? This rosemary
Yeah, I
honey?
mean, besides, so you
Oh.
like to infuse honey with
I love
rosemary.
I love herbs and sweet. And so we're going to do this rosemary honey, but I had recently a salted honey that was so amazing. So I think we should do a salted rosemary honey.
So
for
let's
this
turn
biscuit.
this Viking
All right.
range on.
Yeah.
And how hot do you want this honey? Honey?
Oh.
Do you guys get that?
Yeah, it's just enough to warm.
Yeah, do you just want to warm it through to let it start to thin a
Okay.
little bit?
So I've got this on a really nice simmer.
Yes,
Cool.
correct.
Yeah.
Because you really just want to pull out those oils in the rosemary, and you also want it hot enough to dissolve the molten salt. And if you wanted to add, you can add anything to honey. You could add lemon, you could add, pink peppercorns,
Ooh, that would be
black
really
pepper
good.
would be amazing.
Yes, it would.
What about bacon?
What?
No.
No, I'm with you. Yes, I'm with you, Margaret. Bacon, honey.
We were like, no, but you know what you could do? What you could
You
do?
could reverse it. You could put honey,
honey
on
on the
your
bacon.
and then put that in the oven
Yeah,
to crisp up and
yeah.
then serve that with biscuits.
We were like, another thing that I love to do, so once you make your biscuit dough, and Chadwick, talk about your biscuits, because we
Yeah.
talk about things that, we're talking about what to put on them, but you can put so many things in them. And Chadwick, you put some of everything in your biscuits. So
Yeah, I like to take a basic biscuit recipe like this and add vegetables or fruit to it. So I do a carrot sage biscuit, which is roasted carrots. And it's a play on a sweet potato biscuit. So sweet potato doesn't maintain the color. It just gives it really a nice tenderness to it. But if you chop up roasted carrots and put that into the dough, then you see these beautiful pockets of orange in it and the sweetness. And I add a little bit, talk about honey, I add a little bit of honey to it, and that melds with the carrots. It's really good when you bite into it.
You made a biscuit that I loved. What was it with the
sweet
celery?
potato?
No, the celery and the
celery
Gruyere.
Gruyere. Yeah. And that uses the whole celery, so it's almost like an herb and a vegetable at the same time.
With the leaves.
Yeah, the tender leaves that are in it, and it's an easy drop biscuit. And it's got Gruyere in it, but you just drop it with a
Certain things certain vegetables that have a lot more moisture maybe that you wouldn't add or would add.
No, you can add them, but put them in a bowl
Right.
and toss them about 3 tablespoons of flour, just enough to
gotcha.
cover them.
Cool.
And if it's fruit, if they're like extra wet, just put them in the freezer. Use that as your tool and your technique. Pull it out right before you're going to add your buttermilk or your thinned out sour cream. Put that in, roll it in the dry mix, and then add the buttermilk sour cream, and you're good to go.
Okay, wait.
Wait, you have an inspiration.
I do.
Uh-oh, something just happened.
Amaretto cookies. Ground up, because we're going to sweet biscuit now.
Oh.
We're going to grind them up.
It's biscuit time. It's biscuit time. It's biscuit time. It's biscuit time. It's
Okay, we're going to grind those up, and then we're going to put that into the flour.
Oh.
And then you can also toast some almonds. What would you put with that? What else would you put with
I'm
that?
still with you on the. I'm just tasting what you just said, and I can't even hear you right now because I'm tasting what you just told me.
Right?
My Italian grandmother just said, "Praise Jesus."
Oh, you got Italian in you as well?
A
Yes.
little Gugino.
Nice. Hey.
Yeah.
We're thinned out here. Go ahead and put the rosemary in there, Jamie.
Okay.
And then a pinch of salt,
Rosemary.
right?
Smells so good.
Right?
You know what I did the other
Did you
day,
do this
guys?
Molten salt?
Wow.
The other day is I did a simple syrup, and then I put some rooibos tea in it.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Are we there?
Because,
now I'm thinking.
you know, I love Earl Grey simple syrup,
Yum, yum, yum.
right? When I do
Now-
my sweet tea soda, it's from
Yes.
the tea simple syrup.
I know. So now I did that the other day with rooibos
Yes,
tea.
beautiful
I
color.
reduced it down, and then I thought, if I add the rosemary to that,
It's tea time. It's tea time.
So let's get back to these biscuits for a second.
Yes.
So it's smell is also important. So after you put the biscuits in the oven, you don't want to open it up. Most people are like, oh, are they done yet? Are they done yet? And they're going to come out pasty and chalky white and not have any color at all. And we've gone through all of this effort to add the color.
That's right.
Put it in the oven, keep the door closed, and then smell with your clock counting down, and you can start to smell the butter to brown on
Yes.
top and the bottom. And that's when you really know when they're done. I mean, if you pay attention to your senses as the clock is, what's it, 14 minutes?
Yep, 14 minutes.
You're gonna smell this beautiful brown butter flavor. There's flavor in the brown,
There's flavor
right?
in the brown.
That's right.
Because if I've told you 14 minutes and in your oven they're burning at 10 minutes, you don't leave them in for another 4,
Okay.
right? I mean, because people are like, but you told me. I didn't tell you to burn the thing. Okay, Margaret, what are your thoughts right now about making your first biscuit?
I'm just gonna cry. I mean, this is so much fun, and thank you. I just look at these goosebumps.
She's
I am
serious.
just so honored to have this Biscuit Time experience.
But you haven't even
with
tasted
y'all.
it
I
yet.
haven't even tasted it. I'm gonna faint.
But
I
she's
think
using
I'm
her
gonna taste it.
senses.
Yes.
Yes.
You smell this?
I
Wait, you smell how? I mean, literally, 10 seconds ago you didn't smell this.
Right.
No.
I think they're just about ready.
smelled good to me.
I think they're ready.
Okay.
Yep.
Should
Let's
we
do
get
it.
Okay, the big reveal. Are you ready?
Are we
Here,
all
let's
ready?
come on
Margaret,
in.
you ready?
I am ready. Shall we hold hands?
Well, don't hold my hand.
Ooh. I mean,
Oh.
Look at that, y'all.
This.
come on, guys.
Beautiful biscuits.
Oh.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yay!
It's
biscuit time. It's biscuit time. It's biscuit time.
It really is
Biscuit
biscuit.
time. It is biscuit
Yes.
time. That's right.
So you can see they have the beautiful color and they're very tender. So now, you know, a lot of times people want to dig right in and eat a biscuit. They just need to rest just for a couple minutes, you know, and you can tell. So when you go straight down with the cutter, they get wonky. It's like these got a little wonky just because that was that other fold, but they're still, these should be just as soft as the first ones that we did.
And we were also playing and flipping
Yeah.
while we were doing it, but that is a really good point. And the other thing too, when you cool them, keep them on the sheet pan.
Oh,
Yes.
okay.
Yeah, keep them there. You don't need to put them on a wire rack or transfer them. You just don't want to let them settle.
Okay.
Get a little
Let 'em
rest.
settle in your tummy.
Yeah.
And then meanwhile, you get your honey out. And if
Yeah.
I would put that in like a little ball jar or something with a little dipper to serve that with some soft butter.
Okay.
Put it in here for now.
So Margaret, how do you feel? Do you feel like you can do these biscuits now?
I have the confidence in the kitchen, thanks to y'all. And if I can do it, dear foodie friends, you can do it.
Grab
And
that
Carla will be
butter.
right there with you in her cookbook. And you can play this video over and over for directions of how to do this.
Ooh, look at
Yes. Ugh! Did you
Margaret,
get that?
before we close,
Come on. Okay,
I
you gotta
mean-
get this.
yeah. And I'm
It's
gonna
just-
drizzle this for you.
that. It's just sexy. You guys just made biscuits sexy for me. Sorry
Right?
about it. But you
Okay. It's a little hot, but you get the honors.
I mean,
Tell us how it tastes.
Cheers, everyone. I'm gonna cry. This is tasting my childhood.
Oh,
Thank
Yay.
you.
you're so welcome.
Thank you. I am speechless. This is just so special. Thank you. And delicious. Oh, it is always biscuit time here and in my heart. And you can do it. Yes.
Cheers, my
Thank
friend.
you. Cheers.
Thank you.
Cheers. Thank you so much.
I'm gonna
Thank
cheers
you.
too. And guess what, guys?
Yes.
It's biscuit time.
That's right.
You know what I mean? I'm just gonna dip it.
Dip it.
I'm gonna go old school. Oh yeah. Oh. Oh my God. This is the best biscuit I've ever had in my life.
This
No kidding.
is amazing.
Best biscuit I've ever had.
Thank
Yes.
We're at a loss of words.
I am at a loss for words. So thank you, dear foodie friends. Make sure you check out Chef Carla Hall's cookbook. And also, Chadwick, what do you have going on? You're always doing
I'm
things.
doing a lot of cooking classes right now.
Okay.
People can go to my Instagram at Chadwick Boyd and follow along. I'm touring around the country this year. I want to meet you and connect with you, and we're going to be doing some more biscuit time.
Yeah,
right.
we are.
So stay tuned,
Biscuit
y'all.
time is a good time. That's all I have to
Yes.
say. I had so much fun. Thank you guys for coming into our Viking La Cornue showroom here in the Merchandise Mart in Chicago. You're welcome every time. And these are the best biscuits I'm gonna eat. Guys, crew,
Yes, yes.
you better get in.
And y'all are officially my biscuit buddies.
Oh,
thank
we're
you.
biscuit buddies. Come on, biscuit buddies.
Yay! And so, foodie friends, you are our biscuit buddies too. Send your photos and come visit Chef Jamie here in the Viking La Cornue showroom, Merchandise Smart Suite 137, and the VikingLife.com. And come visit me in my kitchen, kitchenchat.info. And always remember to take a moment and savor
Savor
the
the
day.
day.